17 car companies have officially walked away from building electric vehicles. Not quietly, not behind closed doors, but out in the open, writing off billions of dollars, shutting down factories, and cancelling vehicles that were supposed to be the future. Some of these companies spent a decade promising an all-electric lineup. Now they are scrambling back to gas engines like the whole thing never happened. Except it did happen, and the receipts are ugly. I am going to walk you through all 17, show you how each one burned through billions chasing a customer who was never coming, and explain why every single person who called this a bubble from day one just got the most expensive I told you so in automotive history. Make sure you subscribe, because by the time I get to number 1, you are going to wonder how any of these companies are still in business. Number 17. BMW just killed the iX in America. Gone after the 2026 model year. This was supposed to be BMW's flagship electric SUV, their answer to the Tesla Model X, a statement piece that proved the ultimate driving machine could go electric without losing its edge. Sales told a very different story. They dropped from over 17,000 units in 2023 to about 12,500 in 2025. Then they fell another 50% in the first quarter of 2026. BMW's total EV sales in the US fell roughly 50% year-over-year in that same period. They are replacing the iX with a next-generation model built on their new architecture, but pulling the current version off American lots entirely tells you everything about how badly it missed. You do not discontinue your flagship unless the flagship is sinking. And a $100,000 electric BMW that loses half its value in 2 years is a brutal proposition for any buyer who can do basic math. The depreciation on these things is so bad that a 2-year-old iX is selling for less than a new Telluride. People who bought them at sticker are underwater by $30,000 or $40,000. That is not a vehicle purchase. That is a financial injury. Number 16. Mazda's EV delay is so aggressive, it almost looks like a deliberate protest. They originally promised their first in-house electric vehicle by 2025. That got pushed to 2027, then 2028. Most recently, it slipped to 2029. 4 delays in under 3 years. Their investors are not panicking, because the company is still profitable, doing exactly what it was doing before the EV mandate fever hit. At this rate, they will launch their first EV around the same time flying cars show up. Their CEO lowered the global EV sales target and said the company would focus on what it actually does well, which is building small, fuel-efficient cars that normal people can afford. The MX-30, their only current EV offering, has a range of about 100 miles, which is barely enough to run errands and get home without planning your whole day around a charging station. Mazda looked at the billions other companies were hemorrhaging and decided that building a great Miata was a better use of their engineering budget than chasing a market where they had no competitive advantage, no charging network, and no customer base demanding the product. Mazda's North American sales actually grew in 2025, driven almost entirely by gas-powered CX-50s and CX-90s. They did not need an EV to stay profitable. They needed to keep doing what they were already doing. And you know what? I cannot argue with that. 4 years from now, when this list is twice as long, Mazda is going to look like the kid who stayed home while everyone else jumped off the bridge. Number 15. Subaru's president went on record and said something you almost never hear from a car executive. He said that given the increasing demand for hybrids and the reappraisal of internal combustion engines, it is appropriate to delay full-scale EV mass production investment. A sitting car company president just used the phrase reappraisal of internal combustion engines. That is corporate Japanese for admitting the EV push was premature, and everyone got a little swept up in the hype. Subaru had earmarked about $9.7 billion for EV development. They are now redirecting a major portion of that back into hybrids and gas engines. Their one EV, the Solterra, has been a slow seller plagued by recalls since launch, and the typical Subaru buyer does not want a vehicle that needs a 45-minute pit stop at a charging station between Denver and the trailhead. They want a Forester with all-wheel drive that starts every morning in a snowstorm without asking permission. The company is not abandoning electric entirely, but they are clearly pumping the brakes while the rest of the industry figures out whether this road leads anywhere. And their customers are not complaining. Subaru sold over 600,000 vehicles in America last year. Gas-powered, all-wheel drive crossovers and wagons that do exactly what the buyer needs without requiring a 40-minute stop at a mall parking lot charger. When your customer base is happy with what you already sell, spending $10 billion to give them something they did not ask for is not innovation. It is arrogance. Subaru figured that out before the check cleared. Number 14. Alfa Romeo was supposed to go fully electric. The next generation Giulia and Stelvio were both planned as electric-only models on a corporate platform shared across multiple European brands, with a launch date of 2026. That is dead. Both vehicles have been pushed to 2028 at the earliest, and when they finally do arrive, they will come with gas, mild hybrid, and plug-in hybrid options alongside the electric versions. Alfa Romeo's CEO, Santo Ficilli, went in front of media and said the world is not ready everywhere for EVs, which is a polite way of saying our customers told us no, and we finally decided to listen. Meanwhile, the gas-powered quadrifolio versions of the Giulia and Stelvio that were supposed to be retired have been extended through 2027 because customers kept lining up for them. That is the part that kills me. The buyers were literally handing Alfa Romeo money for the product they already made, and the company almost stopped producing it because a committee in Europe decided they knew better than the people writing the checks. Alfa Romeo does not sell 1 million cars a year. Their buyer is a specific person who wants a specific driving experience, and that experience has never involved plugging a car into a wall overnight. When your own customer base is begging you to keep selling what you already have, and you almost refuse because of a corporate PowerPoint you presented 3 years ago, you have lost the plot. Number 13. Mitsubishi was never a powerhouse in America to begin with. They sell maybe 50 or 60,000 vehicles a year in this country, which puts them somewhere between a rounding error and a footnote. But even Mitsubishi had an EV plan. They were supposed to launch a new battery electric vehicle by 2025 as part of their partnership with Nissan. That got pushed. Then pushed again. Their CEO quietly lowered the company's global EV sales target from as high as 40% down to 25% or lower by 2030. That is quite a walk back when you say it out loud. Going from maybe 40% electric to maybe 25% electric in the span of one earnings call. And their first new electric vehicle for North America is not even their own car. It is a rebadged Nissan Leaf showing up in the summer of 2026. When your big EV play is borrowing someone else's homework and putting your name on it, that tells you everything about how seriously the company took this in the first place. They looked at the EV market, saw companies 10 times their size hemorrhaging cash, and decided to let everybody else burn their money first. And here's the thing nobody wants to admit. The Outlander and the Outlander Sport, both running on regular gasoline, are selling just fine. Their dealers are not begging for electric inventory. Their customers are not walking in asking about charging times. They are asking about towing capacity and fuel economy on a road trip, same as they always have. Honestly, sitting this one out might be the smartest business decision on this entire list. And when you see the billions that other companies lost trying to force it, Mitsubishi's patience looks less like weakness and more like survival instinct. But wait until you hear what happened to the company that literally invented mass-market electric cars over a decade ago. Because Nissan's story is not just a product failure, it is a full corporate meltdown. Number 12. Nissan killed the Ariya. Their flagship electric crossover, the vehicle that was supposed to prove Nissan could still lead the EV market it pioneered with the Leaf, has been removed from the 2026 US lineup entirely. Production paused. The Ariya was built in Japan and hit with a 15% tariff that destroyed its already thin margins against Korean and American competitors. But tariffs were just the last straw on a pile of problems that had been building for years. Nissan posted a record loss of roughly $5 billion in fiscal 2025. They cut 9,000 jobs that later expanded to 15% of their entire global workforce. Their manufacturing footprint is being slashed from 17 plants down to 10. A planned merger with Honda that was supposed to save both companies collapsed in February of 2025 over governance disputes. And 4 new EVs that were supposed to be built at their Canton, Mississippi plant have all been delayed or canceled. The company that gave the world the Leaf, the very first mass-market EV in America, cannot even afford to keep its own electric cars on sale. A Nissan executive reportedly told media that the company had 12 to 14 months to survive, which sounds dramatic until you look at the balance sheet and realize it might have been generous. The ARIA was supposed to prove Nissan still had a seat at the EV table. Instead, it proved that the table was never as big as everyone claimed. That is not irony. That is a company drowning in the pool it dug.
Number 11. Volvo was the first traditional car company to promise a fully electric lineup by 2030. The Trailblazers. The company that made the pledge before it was fashionable and spent years collecting praise from journalists and politicians for leading the charge. In September of 2024, they quietly abandoned that pledge. The new target is 90 to 100% electrified by 2030, which sounds almost identical until you realize that electrified now includes plug-in hybrids and even mild hybrids. That is like saying you went vegan but chicken and fish still count. Then, in March of 2026, Volvo pulled the EX30 from the US market after a single model year. 12 months. Their affordable entry-level electric SUV, the vehicle that was supposed to bring everyday families into the EV fold, did not even survive a year on American lots. When the company that started the entire all-electric pledge is also the company pulling EVs off the market barely a year later, the promise was never about readiness. It was about headlines. And now the headlines have changed, so Volvo is changing with them. Their CEO tried to soften the landing by saying, Volvo will be ready to go fully electric this decade, but if the market and infrastructure and customer acceptance are not quite there, they can allow that to take a few more years. Translation? They do not know when, they do not know if, and they are hoping nobody remembers the original deadline. But people remember, especially the buyers who traded in their gas XC90 because Volvo told them the electric version was the future. Those people are now shopping Lexus and Genesis hybrids, while their used EV sits at the dealership, worth 30% less than they paid for it 18 months ago. That is the collateral damage of a broken promise. Number 10. Mercedes-Benz spent years telling the world they would be all electric by 2030. Sweeping commercials with orchestral music, press conferences in Berlin, investor presentations with charts showing an unstoppable march toward a fully electric future. Then, in February of 2024, their CEO, Ola Källenius, stood in front of shareholders and said the transformation might take longer than expected, and that Mercedes would keep building gas engines and hybrids well into the 2030s. The original plan to have 50% of sales be electric by 2025 got pushed back 5 full years to 2030. That 50% interim target was supposed to be a milestone that proved the strategy was working. Pushing it back 5 years is not a delay. That is a concession that the target was never realistic. Honestly, I think Mercedes looked at what was happening to Ford and GM's books, saw the billions in red ink, and decided they did not want their name on that list. Their customers are not asking for electric S-classes. They are asking for twin-turbo V8s that rattle the parking garage when you start them in the morning. Mercedes figured that out before it cost them their company. Barely. And if you think the German luxury brands walking back their promises is wild, wait until you see what the Korean brands just did. Because Hyundai and Kia were supposed to be the ones getting this right. And if their EV retreat surprises you, the number 1 entry on this list is going to blow your mind.
Number 9. Audi closed its Brussels factory in February of 2025 and killed the Q8 e-tron. 3,000 workers showed up and found out their jobs were gone because the electric vehicles they were building were not selling fast enough to justify an entire factory.
3,000 families learning on the same morning that the EV future their employer promised them was not coming after all. The factory had been producing vehicles since the 1970s, decades of automotive history erased because a product nobody was lining up to buy needed somewhere to be assembled. Audi's CEO then did something remarkable. He abandoned the company's pledge to sell only electric vehicles by 2033. He actually used the word painful to describe closing the Brussels plant, and it should be painful. Those workers did nothing wrong. They showed up, did their jobs, built the vehicles they were told to build, and got sent home because the strategy failed. Not the workers, the strategy. The new approach is flexibility, which means gas engines, hybrids, and EVs all staying in the lineup for the foreseeable future. If you are keeping score, that is now Mercedes, Volvo, Audi, and BMW all walking back their all-electric promises within the same 18-month window. Every single German luxury brand that spent billions in advertising telling you the gas engine was history is now quietly putting that gas engine back on the production line and hoping nobody saved the old commercials. Number 8. Hyundai killed the Kona Electric for the 2026 model year. Kia discontinued the Niro EV entirely. A Korean executive told media the plan is to sell remaining inventory and move on. Kia also dropped the Niro plug-in hybrid, delayed the EV6 GT, delayed the EV9 GT, and indefinitely postponed the EV4's American launch because of tariffs. Hyundai stripped the standard trims from the Ioniq 6 sedan, leaving only the limited production performance variant on American dealer lots. These are the exact same two brands that automotive journalists were calling the future of electric mobility barely 18 months ago. The companies winning Car of the Year awards for their EVs, the ones that were supposedly eating Tesla for breakfast. And now they are quietly pulling models off showroom floors and discontinuing vehicles after 1 or 2 years like they never existed. Hyundai and Kia are not dumb companies. Their gas-powered Tucson, Sportage, and Telluride are some of the best-selling vehicles in America right now. They know how to build what people want. The problem was never their ability. The problem was that they got told the future was electric, invested accordingly, and then realized their own customers were happier with the gas-powered models sitting on the lot right next to the EVs nobody was test driving. That is like opening a salad bar next to your best-selling burger joint and then acting surprised when everyone orders burgers. Number 7. Lamborghini cancelled its first electric vehicle, the Lanzador, in late 2025, and their CEO did not sugarcoat it at all. Stefan Winkelmann told media that EV demand from Lamborghini buyers is close to zero, and that investing in a full electric Lamborghini would be, and I'm quoting him directly, an expensive hobby. He called it financially irresponsible. That is a supercar CEO telling you that his wealthiest customers, the people who spend $400,000 on a car without blinking, still do not want an electric version. The Lanzador is being replaced with a plug-in hybrid. The next generation Urus will also remain a hybrid. Think about what that means for the rest of us. If the guy writing a check for $500,000 still picks a gas engine, maybe the issue with EVs is not affordability. Maybe the product itself is not what people want. Lamborghini knows its customers better than almost any company on earth. They build 4,000 cars a year. They know every single buyer by name practically. And when those buyers said, "We do not want an electric Lamborghini," the company listened. Contrast that with Ford and GM, who spent years telling their customers they were wrong for wanting gas trucks. Lamborghini heard the word no and respected it. Detroit heard the word no and kept building anyway. That difference is worth billions and counting.
Number 6. Bentley has pushed back its first electric vehicle so many times it has become an industry joke. Originally promised for 2025, it got delayed to 2026, then late 2026, and most recently the all-electric only deadline got shoved from 2030 to 2033, and then again to 2035. That is a decade of delays on a product that still does not exist.
Bentley was supposed to prove that ultra-luxury buyers wanted silent electric torque. What they actually proved is that the guy buying a $300,000 Grand Tourer wants a 12-cylinder engine that sounds like it means it. Meanwhile, Aston Martin pushed its first EV from 2025 all the way out to before 2030, which is the vaguest timeline you can give without actually admitting you have no plan. Aston Martin's chairman, Lawrence Stroll, said publicly that there is more hype in the EV market driven by politics than by actual consumer demand, and that customers are voting with their feet and not buying EVs. A billionaire who owns a Formula One team and a car company is telling you on the record that the whole EV push was political theater that never matched what real buyers wanted. And I think he is absolutely right. Because when two of the most iconic luxury brands in the world both refuse to build the product that politicians and analysts spent a decade demanding, you should stop arguing and start listening to the people actually writing the checks. But here is where this list gets heavy. Because the next 5 entries are not about delayed concepts or adjusted timelines. These are billion-dollar implosions, reversed factories, and the kind of corporate confessions that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. And the number 1 entry ties all of it together in a way that should make every car executive in America lose sleep. Number 5. Volkswagen nearly tore itself apart over EVs. The largest automaker in Europe threatened to close up to 3 factories in Germany, something that had never happened in the company's history. Unions went ballistic, workers staged protests. In December of 2024, VW and IG Metall struck a deal to avoid the closures, but the cost was brutal. 35,000 jobs cut, bonuses eliminated for 2025 and 2026, capacity reduced across every German plant. The ID.7, their electric sedan, got cancelled for the American market entirely because of what Volkswagen called an ongoing, challenging EV climate. The ID Buzz, the electric microbus that every car magazine put on its cover, had US production paused for 2026. The ID.3's production at the famous Dresden glass factory ended in 2025, and Volkswagen's CEO dropped the word flexibility into every interview the same way every other automaker on this list has, which at this point is just code for, we are going back to gas engines and hoping nobody asks too many questions. VW poured tens of billions into their EV platform over the last 5 years. They built battery factories, redesigned their entire lineup, and bet the company's future on a transition their customers never confirmed they wanted. And now, 35,000 workers across Germany are paying the price for a bet that the executives made and the market rejected. That is not a restructuring. That is a confession with severance packages. Number 4. Porsche posted its first quarterly loss in the entire history of the company. Not a dip, not a slow quarter, a loss. $967 million gone in 3 months. They took $3.1 billion in EV-related write-downs for the full year, including $1.7 billion in impaired EV development costs and the complete cancellation of their in-house battery joint venture called Cellforce. That battery project was supposed to give Porsche its own supply chain for high-performance cells. Cancelled. The money? Gone. Taycan deliveries dropped 22% in 2025. The second-generation model that was supposed to fix everything launched into a market that had already moved on. U.S. tariffs cost them another $700 million on top of everything else. And CEO Oliver Bloom looked his own employees in the eye and told them the company's long-standing business model is no longer viable in its present state. Let those words settle for a second. The CEO of Porsche, one of the most consistently profitable car companies in history, told his workforce that the way they have done business for 7 decades stopped working. And the reason it stopped working is they bet billions on an electric sedan that their core customers never asked for. You cannot force people to buy something they do not want. Porsche just spent $3 billion relearning what any small-town mechanic in America could have told them for free. Number 3. Honda canceled its entire Zero Series electric vehicle lineup in March of 2026. All of it. The Zero Saloon, the Zero SUV, and the Acura RSX Electric. 3 vehicles that were supposed to be built at factories in Ohio, all dead in one single announcement. The projected loss is roughly $15.7 billion. Honda's CEO and top executives took pay cuts of 25 to 30% for 3 months as a gesture of accountability, which sounds noble until you do the arithmetic and realize that losing 30% of a $12 million salary for 90 days still leaves you living extremely well. The Acura ZDX Electric survived exactly 1 model year before getting yanked, with rebates hitting $30,000 per vehicle just to move metal off the lots. Honda's $15 billion EV factory in Ontario, Canada, got indefinitely suspended in May of 2026, and the Sony-Honda Afeela, that flashy joint venture EV that was supposed to merge PlayStation gaming technology with Honda engineering, was canceled entirely, with all customer reservations refunded. Imagine getting an email saying the car you put money down on does not exist anymore, and here is your deposit back. Honda spent a decade telling America the future was electric. They held press events, released concept videos, signed a joint venture with Sony, and convinced an entire generation of Honda loyalists that the Civic and Accord would eventually be replaced by something you plug into your garage wall. Then they checked the numbers and decided the future was actually hybrids and gas engines, which is exactly what they were selling before the whole EV craze started. The Honda CR-V hybrid is one of the best-selling vehicles in the country right now. Nobody asked them to stop making it. $15.7 billion to end up back where you began, building the same kinds of cars your customers wanted the entire time. That is not a pivot. That is a very expensive U-turn. Number 2. Ford killed the F-150 Lightning. The most iconic truck nameplate in America tried to go electric, and after losses that got worse every single quarter, Ford stopped production in December of 2025. The replacement is a hybrid Lightning with a gasoline range extender, which, if I'm being honest, is just a gas truck wearing a costume. Ford's head of the electric division told reporters that customers demand affordability rather than spending billions more on large EVs that now have no path to profitability. No path to profitability. That is a Ford executive standing at a podium and admitting that every single electric truck they built lost money and they could not figure out how to make it stop. Their Tennessee Blue Oval City plant, the supposed crown jewel of Ford's electric future, got converted to gas F-150 and Super Duty production. 1,000 workers got hired to build gas trucks in a building that was designed to build electric ones. Their Kentucky battery plant pivoted to making batteries for data centers instead of vehicles. The all-electric Explorer and Aviator got canceled with a $400 million write-off. The E-Transit van? Gone. And Ford's total EV-related charges for the fourth quarter of 2025 hit $19.5 billion. Let me say that again so it lands. $19.5 billion. And then CEO Jim Farley went on the record and said his team had pushed him hard to make Lincoln an all-electric brand. He said he refused. And he said, "I am sure glad we did not." When the CEO of Ford Motor Company is publicly thanking himself for ignoring his own team's EV strategy, this is not a market correction. This is a confession. Number 1. General Motors. The biggest, most expensive, most complete EV reversal in automotive history, and it happened right here in Detroit. GM spent years pressuring its own Cadillac and Buick dealers into a corner, invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in EV chargers, diagnostic tooling, and technician training, or get out. Cadillac offered buyouts of $300,000 to over $1 million. About 17% took the money and walked. The dealer count shrank from over 900 to roughly 564. Then GM ran the exact same play on Buick. Dealers who had been part of their communities for decades, the ones who sponsored the Little League team and lent the pastor a courtesy car when his van broke down, looked at the money GM was demanding and said, "I am not going bankrupt to sell a car my customers never asked for." And then the factory side collapsed just as hard. GM's Orion assembly plant in Michigan got converted from EV pickup production back to gas-powered trucks. Ultium battery plants in Warren, Ohio and Spring Hill, Tennessee were both idled with over 2,000 workers in limbo. Factory Zero in Detroit cut Hummer EV and Escalade IQ production to a crawl. Lyric dropped to a single shift. And in Q4 of 2025 alone,
GM booked $6 billion in EV charges, including $4.2 billion in cash, to cancel supplier contracts for components they no longer needed. They wrote a $4.2 billion check to stop receiving parts for vehicles they finally admitted nobody wanted to buy. The dealers who took the buyout are sitting at home with cash in the bank. The dealers who stayed are watching EV inventory gather dust while Silverados fly off the lot. The guys who said no turned out to be right. And every entry on this list connects to one date, September 30th, 2025. That is when the federal $7,500 EV tax credit expired under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. EV sales surged in Q3 as buyers grabbed the last credits, over 400,000 units. Then Q4 cratered 46%. Q1 of 2026 dropped another 28%. Just 212,600 EVs sold across the entire country. Market share fell to 5.8%. New EVs are sitting on dealer lots for an average of 130 days. That is almost 5 months of unsold inventory baking in the sun. A 3-year-old EV is worth about 40% of what it cost new. And while EVs rotted on the lots, hybrids exploded. 756,000 hybrids sold in Q4 of 2025 alone, up 57% year over year. And Toyota, the company every journalist mocked for being too slow on EVs, the one that got called outdated for betting on hybrids instead of batteries, now owns 43% of the entire American hybrid market. They are printing money while everyone who ridiculed them is writing off billions. I am not dancing on anyone's grave. The workers at those idled battery plants who relocated their families, bought houses near the factory, and pulled their kids out of school got idle notices and silence, while the executives who made those decisions kept their offices. The human cost is real. But the executives who spent a decade telling you your truck was a relic and your V8 was embarrassing, who said you would have no choice but to go electric whether you liked it or not, just burned through billions proving what you already knew standing in your own driveway. The gas engine is not dead. It was never dying. And the regular buyer who looked at the pitch, looked at the price, looked at the nearest charging station 45 minutes down the highway and said, "I am good." He turned out to be the smartest person in the entire automotive industry. Which of these 17 brands shocked you the most? Drop a comment and tell me which company you think wasted the most money chasing a customer who never existed. Ford reports earnings in a few weeks, and GM is right behind them. Subscribe so you get the real numbers before the press releases clean them up.